that in 1918, Edward had fallen as deeply in love with Freda Dudley Ward as any man could fall. From then on, he was never not under the influence of one woman or another. There was always a grande affaire going on, alongside a continuous series of petites affaires that occurred in whichever part of the empire the Prince of Wales was in at the time. Lascelles emphasised that Wallis was no isolated phenomenon, but just the current woman in an arithmetical progression which had been going on for nearly 20 years. Wallis Simpson, in her memoir, admitted that it was timing as much as the depth of Edward's feelings for her that led to the abdication. She explained that as Prince of Wales, his loneliness could be lessened by passing companionships, but as king, that would have been difficult. The time had come for him to marry, and it was her fate to be the object of his affection at that moment. This book is about the other women Edward adored before Wallis dominated his life. Once under Wallis's control, he never openly admitted the importance of the women he loved before. However, in his memoir, written decades after these affairs, he did hint at his romantic past. He explained that there had been moments of tenderness, even enchantment, and without these experiences, his life would have been almost intolerable. Part 1 of this book seeks to recapture those first enchantments and analyse their pivotal role in shaping the man he became and his later choices. It describes the relationships the prince had with 3 women. First, Rosemary Leveson Gower, the girl he wanted to marry. Then, his long-term married mistress, Freda Dudley Ward, and finally, Thelma Furness, his twice-married American lover, who inadvertently paved the way for Wallis. This section looks at these women's lives before the heir to the throne entered their world and transformed it. It then charts the course of their romance up to the point where the prince moved on to his next relationship. Rosemary would have been the ideal bride. The daughter of a duke, she was not only well-connected, but also the perfect princess for the post-war era. She had served as a nurse in her mother's hospital in France throughout the war, and shared the prince's compassion and respect for the soldiers who had sacrificed so much. She also had a strong personality, which could have steered the often willful and weak prince in the right direction. Edward had found the perfect partner, but his parents opposed the match. It seems they were worried that the racy family of her mother, Millicent, Duchess of Sutherland, might cause embarrassment. It was a fateful decision. The prince would never seriously court a single woman again. His next love was Freda Dudley Ward. In many ways, she was the prince's match, both physically and emotionally. They were both petite, fashionable and modern. But beneath her feminine exterior was a strong character. She had the wisdom to guide her lover in the right direction and make him a better person. However, Freda was married and, unlike Mrs. Simpson, she knew that she would never marry the prince. Edward was obsessively in love with Mrs. Dudley Ward for 16 years. His biographer, Francis Donaldson, claimed Freda might have been with him forever if she had wished to dominate him as much as Wallis wanted to. Research for this book supports this view. It reveals how intense the prince's love for Mrs. Simpson's predecessor was. In his letters, he portrayed his affair with Freda as a love affair on an epic scale. Reading the hundreds of letters he wrote to Mrs. Dudley Ward for more than a decade, it is clear that no man could have been more besotted. They challenge the legend that Wallis Simpson was the only great love of Edward's life. Even Wallis, in her memoir, admitted that Freda was his first true love. Evidence suggests that he asked Freda to marry him, but, unlike Mrs. Simpson, she firmly refused. One of the reasons that the idea of the legendary love affair grew up around the prince's relationship with Mrs. Simpson was because the public was largely unaware of the heir to the throne's romance with Mrs. Dudley Ward. Freda was discreet and, although their affair was known about in society circles, it did not appear in the press. This book explores in detail the complicated relationship that developed between